Okay, now I can start my speech and say, okay, good evening, everybody. I teach management, and today I'm here to try to talk about a little bit about future, because management is something related to the future. The difference between faculty management compared to faculty in other disciplines is that the scientists, they made discovery. The people that are interested in geography, they made exploration. We teach management. We actually try to explain to companies, people working in company, what they need to do for the future. And actually, we do this. Actually, we try to study the past to predict the future. When you are Jushin? No, I don't speak Chinese, don't worry, okay? So basically, our job is to try to study the past and predict the future. And the question for tonight is that has any sense today, considering the time that we are living, to try to predict the future? Which is the future? And try to integrate a little bit the Chinese culture with the Italian culture or the Western culture. Let me use a quote from Machiavelli. Machiavelli said that whoever wishes to foresee the future must consult the past. And here is the same sentence that Confucius said, but there is something very interesting at the end. The result is that the same problem always exists in any area. So now we might be worried about what is happening around us, but actually what is happening around us in these days already happened in the past. What is different today compared to the past is the scale of the problem. Is maybe the access to the communication media, as we said before, as we listened before from other speakers. So today we know more of what is going on. But what is happening today already happened in the past. And we need to be optimistic. And when I try to explain to my students, of the people that I'm talking with, that we need to be optimistic, I always use these two books. The first book is written by Steven Pinker, that is a philosopher, an American philosopher, that he wrote this interesting book that is called Enlightenment Now. Actually, he's a very positive person. He has a positive attitude towards the future. But the main concept of this book is that actually, despite what is happening, the world is moving forward. We are always improving. We might have a war, we might have pandemic, but the story of the world is that we are improving. And this is the meaning of enlightenment. Enlightenment is the study of reasoning, science, humanism, progress. World is made to make progress. The second book is The Age of Discovery. Professor Goldin is probably the most important professor in studying international business. And basically, he reported in this book that we are living a new resonance. This is a century of new resonance. Why resonance? Because if we look at the resonance, Da Vinci, Copernicus, Gutenberg, Columbus, they were all people that made discovery. They introduced probably the first concept of disrupting technology, and there was a big change after the resonance compared to the previous. And actually, this is what is happening today with the technology. So actually, we are moving forward. We are getting better. Life is longer than before. We live happier. But 2020, Arling, is a particular year. Probably, for the first time, we get the feeling that we are doing less. This is my schedule of last year, exactly 1 year ago, this time. From mid-September to mid-December, I've been once in Russia, twice in Italy, once in Indonesia, once in Vietnam. I was traveling around. I was visiting places. I was meeting people. I was going to conferences. I was going to recruiting fair. I was traveling. What is happening this year? I'm not doing that. So, are we going back? Maybe yes, maybe no. The feeling that we have in these days is that probably we're doing less. But is this really less? What is happening to me? What is happening to me in these months is very simple. For instance, after 7 years in China, for the first time, I took the time to visit China. So rather than traveling abroad, rather than going in another country, for the first time, I took my time to see how beautiful is China. So I'm not sure that we are going back. Probably we are living in a moment of bunches. I took this picture. This picture is the graph of the stock market of one particular share that we are very familiar with in these days, is Zoom, right? What is happening to a rally of a share is that there is a moment of bunch. There is a moment that when the share hit the peak, the share goes down. Probably what is happening to us in these days is that we hit the peak, we had a little bounce, and this bounce allows us to rethink some of the things that we were doing before. So I was trying to think about it, but what's happened in these 7 months? What really changed in terms of our life? We're still here, we're still eating, we're still buying things, we're still, let's say, engaged with the friends to think about the project. There are a boom in birth. There are many things. So basically, the real thing that's happened in the last 7 months has been the concept of lockdown. For the first time in our own memory, we had a limitation. We had a limitation in something. And we realized that we had this limitation because we didn't have the opportunity to access to our resources. So the real problem in the last 7 months has been the access to the resources. If we think that we are talking about digital world, to have limitation in access of resources that for the most of the case are digital, it seems a paradox, right? So actually what we did, we moved what we were doing in a traditional world in a new land, Zoom land. We all became citizens of a Zoom land, but actually we moved from our own way to do things in a new way to do things without changing the way in which we were doing things. I've been in several meetings or several Zoom calls, and there were people at a certain point that were saying, oh, sorry, I need to go because I need to run in another Zoom call. You need to run in another Zoom call? You need to go in another Zoom call? You're still in the same desk, sit in the same chair, you just click another link. You're not going anywhere. You're just doing in a different place what you're already doing. So, which are the things that we discovered during the last 7 months? That we had 2 main issues. One issue was the mobility. We have been limited in our mobility. The second issue is that we had the problem of accessibility. We didn't access to our own resources. So the real limitation in doing our job, the real limitation that I had in teaching, it was not the fact that I couldn't teach online to my students, it was the fact that some of my material was in the office. So basically, the problem that we realized to have is that in a world that we claim to be digital, we have physical constraints. So we talk about digital world, but we're still living with the physical constraints. And this is happening because we are in a toboggan that we call bureaucracy. I can tell you a couple of cases that's happened to me. Due to a new Italian law, I needed to apply for digital signature. Oh, I was so happy. The Italian government made the digital signature. And why they made the digital signature? They made the digital signature to allow the people to sign digitally. Fantastic. Then I apply, and they say, Okay, in order to activate the digital signature, you need to physically come here. I said, is it ridiculous? So we are claiming to have the digital signature, but we can have the digital signature only if we go physically there. So this is called bureaucracy. This is called a system that is not considering the physical constraints. Another things that we realize due to the physical constraints is that we are doing too many meetings. This is a British comedy that is called Meeting Bloody Meeting. I was in a meeting 2 weeks ago, and basically the first hour of the meeting was to make a round table of all the attendees to the meeting, and we report that the news was that there are no news. So 15 people stay in the same room for 1 hour just to say there is no news. So we realized during this moment that a lot of those meetings has been done to inform, not to discuss. But actually they were meetings that we like to run because we like to meet with the people, but not because of the content. So this is really the time to do two things. The first one is to change the perspective. To change the perspective of our word. The second thing that we need to do is to add a little bit of imagination. And so let me use these two quotes. One is from Leonardo and one from Einstein. Perspective is the guide and the gateway, and without it, nothing can be done well. Imagination is more important than knowledge. So this is the time for a new perspective and a new imagination. And this is the time, in particular, for our young talent to think differently, to make their own way to the world using a different imagination. What is the perspective? And what do we need to image? So the perspective is that we need to redesign how we do things. This is absolutely a must. How do we need to redesign how we do things? Oh, first of all, we need to reduce the number of rules that we have created, our toboggan. We need to focus our attention to values rather than rules. What I will tell to our young talent is that if you, after you study, you enter an organization and you see that there is a book of rules as big as that, you need to do one simple thing: burn it. Burn it. You need to ask to your organization not just which are the rules, but which are the value. The second thing is that we need to rethink the concept of space. We talk about digitalization, but it's not the thing. The problem is what the people from design, they call phygital, how we can combine physical space with digital space. It's more a concept of virtualization rather than digitalization. Because digitalization leads us to do things that we were doing a certain way, physically, digitally. But we understood that this is not the point. The point is to rethink the concept of space. So, how we redesign things? Increasing simplicity. One of the speakers before used the word simplicity. This is the time to simplify the word. And how we rethink the concept of space? We rethink the concept of space thinking in terms of proximity. Why need to look too far away when we are not focusing on our proximity? Proximity is not necessary things that are close to us. There are things that are accessible to us. Proximity in terms of accessibility is simplicity in terms of focusing more on values than rules. And so since the topic here is integrity, that is in some way a new word, that is a combination of two words, let me use and try to use my own new word, and is, okay, sorry, left-handed. Sometimes left-handed are too nervous. We use the right. When I need to use the left. Okay, all right. Simplicity. So I see a world in which we need to do things more accessible in a more simple way. So which is the message that I want to pass to our young talent? The message about the future is this is the time to dare. It's the time to dare because I really like this word. And if you apologize me, I wrote this slide using the color of the Italian flag because there is a meaning. Let me give you a second and I will tell you with the meaning. For sure it is the time to dare to do things differently. But there is also another time. There is a word that for me has a lot of, that I like very much because it's also an Italian verb. In Italy, in Italian, dare means to give. So for the young talent, this is a time to dare, to try to think a different word, because the future will be your word. And try to make a word that fits better with your need in terms of accessibility to resources, in terms of concept of space. For instance, before we saw some beautiful picture of a museum. The museum that has been used for performance, but actually we can see online what is there. So we can use the space in a different way. Visit the museum to enjoy the performance and enrich the activity that we're doing. And this is the time for the people like me, let's say, to mentor probably young talent to dare. So it's time for them to dare, it's time for me to give. And that's why I would like to finish my presentation to complete the sentence of Confucius. Is probably we need to study the past to predict the future, and then this is why you became a teacher. Good night.